The next thing I'd like to do is to add some cloud reflection onto the windshield in front of Krista. Because I used a filter when I shot it, I didn't see much cloud reflection. And if we go to this original layer, so I'll turn these adjustments off, and then you can see that there's not much going on in here, which is good because then I can control my image inside of here. And now I can go and add the clouds in after the fact. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn these on so I understand what I'm working with. I'm going to open up my cloud reflection images. So go to File, Open, Reflection, Blue Sky, and Reflection Cloud, and we'll open these up. Now the first thing I'm going to do is bring in Reflection Clouds. I'll just real quickly use my healing brush tool on these specks over here. This isn't going to be super important because this image isn't going to be very visible. It's going to be in the reflection of the windshield and at a low opacity. So I just want to make sure that these don't get in the way. Okay, good. I won't worry about these specks up here because I'm going to use mainly this area of the picture. So let's just click and drag and bring it into our composition. And because this layer group was open, it put it in here. What we can do is this layer mask that we added to Krista driving here. All these changes and everything in this group needs the same layer mask. So what I can do is I can click on the layer mask and drive it, drag it to Krista driving, and it will apply that layer mask to this entire layer. Now there's no visible changes because all the changes were only within that layer group. But now when I turn on like this sky reflection, you can see that it's not going outside of here. I'll have to, define this edge a little bit better, but essentially I don't have to worry about all the little changes within this Krista driving area of the image when I apply the layer mask to here. I'm not going to make any adjustments that are going to later on show up here, and then I will be like, what happened? Why is that different? Okay, so let's get in close here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this to a soft light blending mode. Remember, soft light will show your lights and darken the darks of the image. So if I make that a soft light, you can see what that's going to look like in here. It looks more like a reflection, right? So I can Control T to transform and then rotate it a little bit. Actually, you know what? I want this to come to the edge of the glass, so I'll bring that over a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is, with my paintbrush, paint the mask of this area around here so that it covers the reflective glass areas of the windshield and it doesn't go over. So all I have to do is, with this layer selected, create a new layer mask. I'll rename this real quick. Reflection Clouds. There we go. Add a new layer mask to that layer, and then I'll come in and paint out the edge here, right along the edge of this windshield. So I'll select my brush with black, painting at full opacity. Great, now I'll reset this to a normal view. Go to my blend mode, go to normal, so I can see if I missed anything. Got it pretty good over here. Up here I kind of missed some spots, so I can just go over those again. Okay, I went a little too far here, so I'll click X to switch my foreground and background colors, and just paint that back in a little bit. Okay, great. So now my clouds in the reflection are just showing in the windshield. So I'll change this back to a normal blend mode, or actually soft light, because that's what we want. Great, now I have my clouds in here. And what I'm going to do is, there are some areas within the reflection that I don't want the clouds distracting from in here. It's just supposed to be a nice little detail, but nothing too important within the image. So I'll bring in this blue background. I just pointed my camera up and took a picture of the blank sky. I'll fix some of the spots in here as well. All right, that's fine. Now I'll drag this to my new composition. And now this was also placed within the Krista driving layer group, so it has that mask applied to it automatically, but it doesn't have this mask applied to it. So what I could do is I can just apply this layer to the layer beneath, and now wherever this layer is visible, we see this blue sky layer on top of it. I'm gonna scale that down a little bit because the blue sky is really big. I don't really need all that, and it has a cool gradient in it that I want to be somewhat noticeable. Now what I'll do is apply a layer mask to the reflection blue sky layer. I'll just call it reflection blue sky real quick. Add a layer mask to this. Now wherever I paint in black, we'll be able to see some of that cloud reflection come through. So if I go here, you can see, but I can control it so it doesn't overtake my image in areas where I don't want it to be. So I want it to kind of not be as visible up here in front of her face, but become more visible down below. So what I'll do is I'll go to a big brush, and then with white, click up here, and it'll take away some of these areas. I'll bring the opacity of my brush down. Good. Now I'll get more specific in here. These clouds reflected on the side here are cool, but a little distracting. So I'll bring those down a little bit. Make sure nothing's covering her face. Then we'll bring it down again over here. Okay, so now I can see these clouds reflected in the windshield, but it's not too distracting. I want to bring it down even more, so I'll bring down the opacity of this layer. Something like that. Now it's just a little nice detail. You can kind of see the clouds, but you don't notice them. And so it makes it seem more realistic of an image, right? Because in real life, you can see reflections in windshields. So again, I don't want it to be the first thing anyone notices in this image, but I definitely want them to believe that this is a real picture. And good. Now if I turn off these layers, you can see I've just added that nice little touch here. I'll turn back on these adjustment layers. I think this curve, bringing the darkness down, is a little too strong, so I can double click on it. Instead of adjusting the curve, I'll change the opacity of the adjustment layer and just bring it down a little bit. So now it's as if I turn the adjustment layer off, this is on, I'll go somewhere in the middle. Yeah, 50% is good for that. Okay, great, and now because I've put these two main images in groups, I'll make a group called Krista Outside. Oops, not my crop tool. I want to select these, put them into a layer, call it Krista Outside. Change the blend mode to normal. And now I can very clearly see my three main images in my composite. It's very organized, and if I do need to make changes now, I can just come back down here and adjust those areas.